Volvo. They were always that brand that stood in the paddock to the left of the mainstream, especially when it came to the large saloon cars. The 740, the 760, the 940, the 960, and then of course the S90. They weren't as sporty as BMW, maybe not quite as technologically advanced as Audi, and they certainly weren't as upper class and luxurious as Mercedes-Benz. They were just, well, different really. And history appears to be repeating itself, especially in this new brave world of electrification, because this is Volvo's latest offering, the ES90. And again, it's not the obvious choice, but Volvo tell us it could be the best choice. Welcome to another new car review. Welcome to the new Volvo ES90. Please sit yourself down and make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now, you may have noticed that over the last few years, Volvo have been reinventing themselves. Not with any fuss, not with any drama, not with any noise, but with some very simple key philosophies: styling, safety, sustainability, and now software. And this latest flagship, the ES90, is key to making that next step on, especially when it comes to that last one, software. It sits alongside the EX90, the large all-electric SUV. It sits on the same platform as that. But it takes the game a step further on when it comes to sort of like in-car technology and, of course, safety, a key thing with Volvo over the last few decades. But is it any better than the rivals that it's going to face in the marketplace? Because we've seen some really good products from the likes of BMW, Mercedes and Audi, marques that Volvo want to be associated with and want to take some customers from. But Volvo doing it a different way to those ubiquitous German 3, is that going to work for you? Well, let's put it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. However, before we move on, here are 5 key selling points that any potential buyer is going to need to know about the new Volvo ES90. Well, Volvo say this is a brand new type of car, blending saloon, fastback and SUV into one. It has 800 volt architecture with up to 435 miles of range according to WLTP figures and ultra fast charging capabilities. The key message, however, this is a software defined platform with dual NVIDIA supercomputing power. But it also has one of the lowest carbon footprints of any Volvo ever built. And it combines flagship comfort, space and safety with Volvo's most advanced sensor suite yet. So this latest car embodies what Volvo feel the future of premium luxury motoring should look like. Not louder, not faster, but better. Is it? Well, like I say, let's put it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. And if you want to know more about all the new cars to hit the UK market from a buyer's perspective, then you'll want to make sure that you are subscribed to the House of Cars channel. And then when you've done that, make sure you've turned on your notifications so you don't miss the next review when it's uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched it, if you enjoy it, please give it a little thumbs up for me. And as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section. Right, let's see if Volvo are onto something, shall we? Right. Design. This is one area where I think Volvo don't need to really be too worried, because I think their design is absolutely on point. I've always been a big fan of Volvo design over the last few years, and the latest ES90 just takes that evolution of what we've seen from them in their other models, such as the EX30, the new XC60, and of course the larger EX and XC90 models, and just evolves it a little bit further than that. It's clean, it's simple, it's exactly as you'd expect with a Scandinavian style of design. And of course it's got the typical Volvo styling cues, such as your Thor hammer headlights. They're not quite as animated as they are in the big EX90, where the DRL split to unveil the main headlight units. The actual main headlight units are just above them in this section here. But still, it's a very distinctive face, and you're left under no impression of the fact that it's a Volvo. And of course you've got your big Volvo badge just in the centre there, which obviously embodies such things such as some of the safety kit as well. They've got some sensors and forward-facing camera there. Now the safety side of things I'm going to talk a lot about when it comes to this, because Volvo are pathological about the safety. And it's one thing I did question with the EX30, and if you've watched my EX30 cross-country review, you'll know that. It's with regard to that central infotainment screen where everything's controlled through it. But they tell us they've learned a lot from that car, and there's some big fundamental changes with this one, but we'll see that in a little while. Very clean at the front. It's quite a dark colour, this car, I'm afraid. I got the mulberry red one. There was a choice of two here, sand dune and mulberry red, and I got given the mulberry red one, which I have to admit is really nice not to have like a grey or a black car, but it's quite dark. Unfortunately, a slightly grey day, and it doesn't really sort of show off a lot of it. But still, as I say, it's quite a clean front end to the car. It's very aerodynamic as well, and that helps when it comes to keeping wind noise down as well. And that's another key thing that Volvo have talked about in terms of, you know, sort of like the serenity of the interior of it. And that's something that is very key to this car, I think. Of course, you get active cooling down at the bottom there that'll open and close as and when you need it, and obviously keep the battery cool. And of course, you've got the little sort of like extra bits of lights down there. It's almost like a hammer hitting a stake into the ground with this bit here. And there's some nice sculpture work on the bonnet. But it's clean, it's simple, and it's very defined, and as I say, it's very much on brand. It's typical, as you'd expect, from a Scandinavian style of design. That's exactly what we've come to expect, irrespective of whether it's Volvo or whether it's IKEA or whether it's their architecture. It's simple, but it's neat, it's crisp, and it stands out for those reasons. Now, this is a big car. It's bang on 5 metres long with a wheelbase of just over 3 metres. So it does lend itself very, very well to a lot of interior space. And as I say, it sits on the SPA2 platform that also underpins the EX90, the large electric SUV. Now, there's a couple of things we need to talk about with regards to it. You may have seen when the car was launched back, in the European launch of the car, it had obviously a little hump above the windscreen for LiDAR. That's not coming on the car because the company that was providing Volvo with the LiDAR are no longer around. So Volvo sort of shelved that for now. But it hasn't had a massive impact when it comes to the actual safety of the car, which obviously we can discuss a little bit later on. Let's carry on with the design. You're going to get the choice of 2 trim levels effectively. You're either going to have the Plus or you're going to have the Ultra. This is a Plus model that I have here, and they start on 20-inch alloy wheels. But then as you move up, you've also got the choice of 21s and 22-inch wheels with different designs when you go to the Ultra. There's also a choice of single or dual motor cars. This car I've got is a single motor car, and it's rear wheel drive. So drive to the rear, steering to the front, just as God intended. Now, I mentioned SUV. I mentioned the fact that Volvo are saying it blends in a lot of different sort of genres of cars, and one of them they say is SUV, and they've sort of said that because of the ride height. It's quite a tall car when you think about it. If you think of something like a BMW i5 or a Mercedes-Benz EQE or Audi A6 e-tron that obviously it competes with, they're much lower than this. It sits a bit taller. It's got a slightly higher ride height to it, and you can just see the gap between the top of the tires and the wheel arches, maybe a little bit more crossover-like. But I'd stop short of calling it an SUV, I really would. It's a bit like the Polestar 2, obviously Volvo's sister brand. It's not a dissimilar style of car to that. So as far as I'm concerned, it's an executive saloon car. But it's not a saloon, because actually it's a fastback, and we'll see that later. It's got a hatchback on it. Simple lines. Wheel arches there, a nice, again, simple wheel arch, double wheel arch sort of like design there, and then a very strong sort of like shoulder line that comes along there, and then a very simple line that just runs parallel to it. The 2-line sort of design philosophy that Volvo have with a very sleek aerodynamic fastback shape to it. And so it slips through the air really easily, this car, which helps with its range. I love the fact obviously it's got the frameless door mirrors as well. I really like that with Polestar and Volvo, but again, a lot of tech on it. There's loads of cameras that are detailed around here as well with little sensors on them. And whilst you can't see it in this particular car, you do get the sort of like the different cladding on the lower half. The only thing is, it does sort of stick out a little bit, that, you know, whilst it's not going to intrude on you, but there is quite a, it does protrude out, you know, from the bottom of the door quite a bit, but it does wrap underneath the sill of the car. So again, you've got that nice clean sill as you step in and out of the car. Door handles are flush until you approach it with the key in your pocket, then they electrically pop out to greet you, and obviously it's just very simple pull from there on in. But like I said, it's not assertive in the sense of being aggressive, it's assertive in the sense that it's a very confident, simple design. It's very Volvo, and I like that about it. I like the fact that it's not overtly aggressive and sporting. It is trying something a little bit different, something that I feel maybe we haven't really taken much notice of in some of its rivals. And then we get to the back. I absolutely love the rear end of this car, and of course it's Volvo saying we're not going to follow convention with doing a traditional type of saloon car. They've done this before. Remember the little Volvo C30? I had 2 of them, which I absolutely adored. Was it a coupe? Was it a hatchback? Did it really matter? They were just doing things their way, and that car's got a real following because of it. And I think it's the same here. This fastback design, where you've got the traditional sort of Volvo C shaped lights here, and you think that's them. But then there's the lights higher up here, and again, that's for safety reason as well. So you've got the higher level of the lights up here, plus obviously you've also got a high level brake light embedded up there. The traditional Volvo lettering across, and as much as I don't particularly like manufacturers that spell out the name of the brand across the back of it, Volvo have been doing that for years, so you know, they're just doing what they've been used to. And again, you've got a tailgate, a fastback design, whatever you want to call it, that comes down to reasonable height there, and then this gloss black finish there with your reverser, your reflectors and sort of like things in there. And again, a reversing camera just tucked up underneath there. There's no rear wiper on the car, obviously, because of the airflow design. Again, maybe a bit from a practical point of view would have been handy, but from a design point of view, what would you have done with it? So I do sort of understand why they haven't done it. But I like it. I really like it. I like the fact Volvo have done something different. They've been very Volvo, but they've not done something different and radical. They've just done something different and done it in the way that only Volvo can. It's clean, it's simple, it's confident, and it's assertive without being too shouty. And especially in these sort of like darker, more subtle colours, it has an air of class about it that I think might be lacking from some of its rivals. But anyway, look, that's my point of view. It's more important what you think about it, because you might be out there thinking of buying a new car, and if you are, and you're thinking of a large all-electric saloon car, would this be on your radar now? Do you like what Volvo are doing with this? Would you prefer this over something like a BMW i5 or a Mercedes-Benz EQE or an Audi A6 e-tron? Or would you just not really bother and not really give it a second thought? Whatever it is, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, one key attribute Volvo's always had up its sleeve is, of course, practicality. So is the ES90 practical? Well, it's not too bad. 424 litres of boot space is what you get. And of course, the fact that it's a fastback means that it's a little bit better in terms of loading things in than a 3-box saloon like a BMW i5. But just bear in mind, obviously, i5 comes as a touring, in other words, an estate car, an area that Volvo used to be dominant in. Anyway, never mind. You've got the 40-20-40 split across the back seat, or as Volvo call it, IKEA mode, which is great because you can still carry 2 rear passengers and have the centre section folded down and still get longer loads through there. The other thing that I quite like about the Volvo as well is there's some sensible little things in it, in the boot of it, and this is the things that I really think some of the Chinese brands are really lacking in at the moment. You know, little folded down hooks, you know, extra sort of like storage, you know, nets on the side there, you know, some nice sort of like chromed luggage hooks to be able to put some luggage nets down. Now, if you do fold down the rear seats, that'll take total capacity up past 900 litres, which is obviously excellent. And there is a little bit of underfloor storage as well. You probably would get a cable in there, but Volvo do supply you with a bag for your cables in, which is maybe a bit of a downside. There maybe be a bit better with a bit more space in there to get the cables in. But nevertheless, there is a little bit in there where you can actually take this parcel shelf off and stow it in there. So you can actually, you know, keep the parcel shelf with you if you've got the rear seats down. You know, you're doing a tip run or something, for instance. So overall, it's quite good. Overall practicality is good for the class of car, but would really have been nice to see maybe an estate version of it, Volvo. Now, of course, one of the benefits the ES90 has is that it's built on Volvo's SPA2 platform, the same as its larger EX90 sibling, which also means that it has a huge amount of interior space when it comes to rear accommodation, because obviously the battery doesn't encroach into rear seat space, which is very, very good. And of course, the fact that it sits that slightly higher ride height means getting in and out of it is a lot easier as well. The only downside is if you're slightly taller and you're in the back, I'm only 5'8", but if you're maybe 6 foot, that roofline where it starts to just slope back here is just going to be encroaching in your head space a little bit, so do watch that. There's a completely flat floor across the car, as you would expect, and my feet don't feel pushed up at all. They're maybe raised a little bit, but in fairness, not so much that it would be uncomfortable. And I mean, look at this leg space that I've got here. That's vast. That's my driving position. And when I sit with my back right in the seat, I can barely just touch the back of the seat. So there's a huge amount of room back here. There's not so much storage, however, because there's no pockets on the backs of the seats, which is a little bit of a shame. I'm surprised that Volvo haven't included that. But there is some decent door bins here, which are rubber lined on the bottom as well, so they'll stop things sort of like rattling around and things like that. It will also depend on the model that you get as to the sort of like the centre armrest. I think Ultra models get a slightly different armrest to this particular one. This one's just got the 2 cup holders in it and no additional storage, but the higher grade Ultra model gets a little bit extra storage in there as well, so that's quite handy. It also has reclining rear seats as well, so the rear seats will go through a little bit of a recline as well to give you even more space. But again, even on this one, they're absolutely fine. And of course, this being obviously a lighter interior car means that this fixed glass panoramic sunroof, which goes opaque at the touch of a button from the screen, floods the cabin with light. So that just over exaggerates the amount of space that's in the car as well. So yeah, while it's lacking a little bit of headroom, it certainly doesn't feel cramped back here. And whilst I appreciate this lighter coloured interior is not going to be practical if you've got kids, from the point of view of feeling spacious, it certainly ticks the box. Now you've got rear climate control here as well, so the rear passengers can adjust their own climate, and they've also got heated and ventilated rear seats, so that's quite a rarity too. And the vents themselves are very easy to manipulate just via the two toggles that are here as well. And there's connectivity with two USB-C ports behind at the back of this rear console. So, as I say, despite the fact that there isn't actually any pockets on the backs of the front seats, there's certainly a huge amount of space when it comes to passenger accommodation. Just watch the headroom, and despite, as I say, the lack of pockets, there's a reasonable amount of storage. But as I say, in terms of space and accommodation, that's a big tick in the ES90's box as far as I'm concerned. Now, we talked about some of the things, the key things that Volvo were talking about right at the very, very start, and two of them were sustainability and software, and that's very much in evidence in the interior. And I'll talk about the materials a little bit later on, but let me talk about the software first. Now, I don't really understand tech. I like it, I don't really understand how it all works in some respects. Now, one thing that I bemoaned the EX30 about, and I've obviously reviewed it a few times, I've reviewed it over on Auto EV when I worked there, and obviously I've also done it on House of Cars as well, is the fact that for a company that's so pathological about safety, the fact they made everything on this central infotainment screen. You had to take your eye off the road to do pretty much everything. I'm pleased to say they've sort of learned from that. There's now a separate display for your driver information. So for, speed, navigation and things like that, you can now put it across this little 9-inch screen that's attached to the steering column. There's also a head-up display in the car as well, which displays things. So, I think they've probably learned their lesson a little bit. However, you'll note there is a lack of physical buttons in the car, and that's because a lot of it still is done through the screen. But the flip side of that is how fast this thing now works. Now, this is the bit I don't really understand. It uses NVIDIA software, and seemingly it's the same type of software that AI uses. And the processing power, I genuinely couldn't get my head around when they were talking about it until they mentioned one fact, and it blew my mind. It really did. It reacts and it does things. Its processing power is as fast as reading 2 million books a second. I wasn't quite sure how that tallied up, reading 2 million books a second, but that's effectively the way that this thing works. That is how fast it is. As I say, the software that it uses comes from AI and on all that kind of stuff. I mean, just wow. Yeah, I'm blown away. And in fairness, me playing around with it this morning, it's exactly that. You touch something, it responds. Look at that. You go back to home, you move the map. It's as quick as that. I mean, that's phenomenal. And of course, it's Volvo. So like Polestar, it uses inbuilt Google as well, which I always really like. So the Google Maps is the inbuilt sort of like navigation system. Obviously, you've got things such as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well, which you can go into. You can also download various other apps from the Google Play Store as well. So for instance, Waze, if you want to use that, it's got inbuilt Spotify and Tidal. There's other apps you can download into it to make your life a little bit easier. And of course, it also has Google Assistant as well. But yeah, I just genuinely can't get my head around how fast this thing actually works. Again, driver notifications, things like that. It's an immediate response you get from it, which is just absolutely phenomenal. The screen itself is laid out in a very logical fashion. Again, this is another reason why I quite like Volvo, and obviously, as I say, it's very similar to Polestar. So when you do go in, your widgets are laid out in a nice sort of grid fashion. I think you can also adjust them various. You can have 2 tiles here. You can adjust to have, your most used ones on there as well. So that's quite good. If you want to have your climate control system is permanently displayed on the bottom. However, if you want to use it, you've got to go into a separate climate climate menu. That's maybe the only downside, but again, just how fast that reacts. I mean, I literally brushed that and it came up. So there, you know, you can adjust there where your, you know, your fan speed, your actual climate itself. If you want to control the rear as well, maximum defrost, front screen, rear screen, that's in there. You know, you go into sort of like your heated seats as well, that's there. Heated seats, heated steering wheel, ventilated seats to sync up, that's there. So it's as simple and as quick as that, but you do have to use the screen. So a bit of sort of like balance for me there. I quite like the fact that it is as quick as it is, but it just would be, for an old fogey like me, I just quite like some physical ventilation controls. But I can't knock how quick that is. The only other little thing with it is you've got to press a button on the screen to open the glove box. Why can't it just have a button? Anyway, there we go, it doesn't. The other thing as well is that I'm not quite so keen on is a lot of the driver controls, again, are controlled through the screen, but we've seen this with a lot of cars. So for instance, if you want to adjust the steering wheel, you know, you've got to go into the car settings, driver adjustments, and now you use the buttons on the steering wheel. Oh, hang on, am I adjusting? See, that's the thing, I'm now adjusting the mirrors. So driver adjustment, steering wheel, there we go. Could I just have a lever and I can pull it in and out? It'd just be so much faster. Anyway, that's what you've got. And again, with the mirrors as well, if you want to go into the mirrors, you use the controls on the steering wheel to adjust. So you choose the mirror you want to adjust on there. But again, I just used to like Volvo's little joystick on the side of the door panel. Am I just old? Is it me? Do you feel the same? Let me know in the comment section. I will talk a little bit about this now. So when you engage drive, which is also on the steering, this right-hand column here, this now displays, depending obviously on what you want, it could show you a map. So that's quite nice, and it's really clear and really bright. Or you can change it to show you like ADAS systems there. So if there's a car next to you, like there's the Volvo across there, it can see that. Or if you want a more basic one, it just gives you the central speedo. And again, crisp white on black lettering, really easy to read at a glance. And as well, you also get the head-up display, which you can adjust as well. So, you know, that ticks a lot of boxes for me, and thank you for doing that, Volvo, rather than having everything grouped across here like you did on the EX30. So that is a lot better. I much prefer that. Well done, you. And obviously on the left column stock, it does all the other things such as your indicators, your lights, and of course your wipers as well. The steering wheel is pleasingly round, nice simple 3-spoke design. It does have the one sort of big button on it in terms of what you've actually got, you know, sort of like controls on it. But again, it sort of like all works quite neatly. It's not touch sensitive, it's a physical button. You've basically got to press it to make it work. Quite like that. The only downside is Volvo, why have you got 2 separate controls for the windows? So there's 2 window switches here, and then you press another switch to operate the back one. Why do car manufacturers do that? Why can't I just have 4 window switches? There was nothing wrong. It's reinventing the wheel for the, you know, for the sake of it. Just wish they wouldn't do it. Anyway, there we go. Materials I'll talk about now, and I've got to say there's a big message of sustainability with this car. Again, another fact that I was really impressed with. This car here, in terms of its CO2 output when it comes to production, is 30% less than the EX90, their last new car. Not a car from a few years back, the last one that they brought out, the EX90. That's phenomenal. That's a big difference. So they've really concentrated on bringing this, you know, their CO2 output down in terms of production. And the materials that it uses are just lovely. You know, it feels premium. I mean, you know, there's good bounce back on this soft, light beech wood that's here. There's got this lovely texture to it. It's along the center console here as well. And on this section here, that just looks and feels nice and feels special. The leather on the seats, which obviously isn't leather, but it, you know, again, it feels soft and premium, but it feels like proper sumptuous leather. The seats themselves are, I mean, the typical Volvo. You've got one big square controller down the side of it, and you twist it to adjust your backrest, and obviously pull it up to adjust your height and backwards and forwards. Depending obviously again on model, you can also have it where there's a massage function if you press the center of it. Then you've got basic adjustments here now. So again, you can you can adjust that and then store it all in here, but the other system will have a massage function as well, so you can have various different formats of massage and different speeds and different intensities, which again you can control all through here. Brilliant. But themselves, you know, massive support down the side, down the lateral side of your legs as well. There's no tilt, which is a shame, but there is an adjustable squab manually, so I will forgive them for that, because that just tucks up underneath my legs and gives me the support I want. There's a really nice blade as the door handle here, I like. So you've got this big sort of like door pull on the front of the armrest, and then this sort of like blade like sort of like dorsal fin is your actual door handle. And because again the material feels so good, that's a touch point, and it just feels special and premium. And there's a lot of manufacturers moving away from that. Volvo seem to be moving more towards it and embracing it. And that's what I like about it. Silly things like the volume control here on the centre, that's made of Swarovski crystal. That's really nice. You know, it's just got a nice tactile feeling. It's really nicely damped. Same for your track search, your radio search. You know, you've got physical controls there. Don't know why they didn't do them for the temperature, but there you go, it doesn't. This is what they call the bookshelf, and I like this. So you've got actual storage behind the screen as well. And then you've got this area here, which obviously has a wireless phone charger, which is ventilated. And then also another little bit of storage just at the side there. If you want to store another mobile on there, you can do. Plus, obviously, you get two cup holders down the side, down the centre console, with a roller shutter across it. Same material as this beech wood. Two USB-C ports in there, and a nice armrest with enough storage in there for a couple of Mars bars. And again, just feels nice the way that just sort of clicks shut. Do like that. So software, sustainability, two big key factors that we've spoken about. Now again, depending obviously on the model you have, if you go for the Ultra, you can have it with a 24 speaker Bowers & Wilkin audio system. This isn't it. This has just got the basic Bose system, which still sounds phenomenal to my ears. But the 24 speaker Bowers & Wilkin thing, if your streaming service supports it, you get Dolby Atmos. And it also has another mode called Abbey Road Studios mode. So again, it uses all the settings from Abbey Road Studios in London to give this immersive sound experience, which some of the guys have got in the cars that they've taken it and they said it sounds incredible. So I've got to give them credit where it's due. I was really ready to dislike this, but it works so quick and it works so fast. It's still not ideal when you're an old guy like me and you just want buttons, but the fact that it moves and responds to everything as fast as it does and just reacts to input the way that it does, and it's so well laid out and so clear. If you are going to have a screen and you are going to rely on software to control a lot of the functions of the car, then make it as good as this, guys, because this is phenomenal. I cannot knock it. And the one area where I really criticised the EX30 in terms of, you know, not having a driver's display, this has it. Plus it's got a head-up display as well. So it's ticked a lot of the boxes, a lot of the negatives I had with that car, and I still love that little car. This has answered a lot of the criticisms it has with it. But what a system, I've got to say, well done Volvo. But just the design of it, you know, the premium feel of it, the quality of it, the comfort of it, it's a big tick in the box for me. I love Volvo interiors, I really do. I've always found them really, really good. But this thing just elevates them up there with the best of the best as far as I'm concerned. And not many people can do the software like Volvo have with this one. So yeah, well done. Absolutely winner as far as I'm concerned. Now there's two battery sizes available on the ES90, and this is the bit I'm sort of struggling with a little bit to understand why they've done this. Because if you go for a single motor car like this, then it's a 92 kilowatt hour battery, and that will deliver a driving range of up to 411 miles according to WLTP tests. But if you go for a dual motor car, it goes up to 106 kilowatt hours, which means 438 miles of WLTP driving range. Doesn't seem like a massive difference to me. Don't understand why they don't just fit the one battery to the car and be done with it and get a better range out of the single motor car. Anyway, they don't, so there you go. It's still 800 volt architecture across both, and that single motor car will give up to 310 kilowatts of DC charging, and the dual motor car is 350 kilowatts of DC charging, meaning a 10 to 80% charge is done in just 22 minutes. And you can also charge on 11 kilowatt AC as well, so if you've got faster three-phase electricity, your quid's in with this car. But in terms of its software and and the way that the batteries are packaged into the car, you're going to have excellent charging capabilities with the new ES90. It's one area where this car really does stand head and shoulders above the competition. So I'm driving the single motor car here, which has 333 horsepower and 480 newton meters of torque. This will do 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds. If you want to go a bit faster, there's a twin motor car that's available that takes the power up to 449 horsepower. It'll knock about a second off the 0 to 60 time. I think it brings it at about 5.4 seconds. And obviously that's got a little bit more torque as well. That's got 670 newton meters of torque. Or you can go for the twin motor performance model, and that makes it a lot more powerful. That has 680 horsepower and 870 newton meters of torque, and that will take the 0 to 60 time down to 4 seconds flat. But here's the thing with this: whilst you can have the ES90 with that level of performance, it's not really what the car is about in some respects. Volvo aren't out to make an i5 M60 or a Tesla Model S Plaid. They're doing things their own way. So yes, you can have it with performance. If that's your bag, great. But you really don't need it. This car feels decently quick as it is. And this is the thing with this car. It's the way at which it goes about its business. It's unlike any of its other rivals, maybe save for the Genesis G80 in some respects, because it's not about sportiness, it's not about performance, it's about making you feel a little bit better. Now, I can wheel out some, cliches here. There's an air of calmness to the car, there's an element of tranquility to the way that it goes down the road. And you would maybe screw your face up and go, that's a bit cringy, Brian. But the truth is, that's what it's like. That's exactly how this car feels. There's a relaxed nature to it, and that's what I mean. I don't really think you need to go for the higher performance versions. And certainly in terms of, whilst obviously you can have them with the bigger battery, this does actually not a bad amount of range anyway as it is. It's still over 400 miles of WLTP range. Now, in terms of the chassis, what you have is double wishbones up front and a sort of like a link arrangement on the rear axle. Now, this particular car I've got is on passive springs and dampers, but you can have it with air suspension, and it's a dual chamber air suspension mode you can have the car in. So you can make it sportier, give a bit more, stiffer edge to it, or you can slacken it off and make it a little bit more comfort orientated. Just been speaking to a colleague of mine who's been out driving his car this morning, his ES90 this morning, and he was like, "Ooh, this is quite comfortable, this is nice, let's try it in sport mode." And then he realised he was already in the sport mode. He said it just couldn't believe how comfortable the car was. It wasn't hard-edged, it wasn't, like feeling every little ripple on the road and things like that you might have been in a BMW or an Audi. He said it just genuinely felt comfortable in the sport mode. And then when you put it into the comfort mode, he said it was just beautiful and relaxed. And I don't feel like I've missed out by having this more basic setup in this car, because this is lovely. It's really nice. When you come off the pedal and the car coasts, that's an aid of its efficiency in some respects, because it really will coast quite a bit down the road if you're on a more open stretch of road. You've got a one pedal drive mode, and there's sort of two sides to that. So down here, whilst again it's on the screen, it is actually active on the screen all the time. So if I press it now, it goes into one pedal auto. So in other words, if I take my foot off the brake, off the accelerator, nothing happens, because that car in front of me is far enough away. But if I was closer to it, it would start to pull up the brakes. Or if I was using the navigation and it knows I'm coming up to a junction or a roundabout, it would then start to activate the brake regen. Or I can go into one pedal mode, and there is a car behind me so I won't do it, but if I come off the pedal, the car will pull up to a halt and hold on the brakes. So there's an element of adaptability to it without the need for paddles and things, or extra switches and things like that. That's probably about enough as you'd maybe want, depending on what you like. But the overriding thing with this car for me is the comfort and the refinement. And I've said this a lot in reviews of late with certain cars. The Twingo, the Renault Twingo that I tested, I said that was a more comfortable and refined car than any little city car is right to be. But you expect it in a big luxury sort of executive saloon, and you get it here. Like I said, I just mentioned the Genesis there. The other car that does remind me of is Lexus. It's that style of car. You know, yeah, there's an element of performance about it. It will go quickly if you want it to. You can hustle it through a set of bends. But actually, it's not what the car's about, and it's not where it's at its best. You know, this A road that I'm on at the moment, it's a 60 mph limit. Obviously there's cars in front and things like that. And I'm just quite happy just sitting back and letting the car just, you know, get me to a destination. You know, the climate control's set, it's quiet, there's no wind noise coming in, there's no road noise whatsoever from the car at all. Admittedly, this is on 20-inch wheels, this car. I haven't driven it on anything bigger than that. I don't know if they're a bit more, they're a bit more vocal, dare I suggest. I don't know, but in this one, it's really quiet. The other thing as well is, even though this is the standard suspension, it really does soak up some of the potholes really nicely. There's been a couple of sharp potholes that I've hit by accident on this unfamiliar piece of road, and it just deals with it. You can feel they're there, but it's not this shudder, all of a sudden this shockwave going through the whole structure of the car. You just, you know, you hear a little thump, and that's it. You don't feel it in the seat, you hear it, that's it. So its primary ride, how it deals with the more bigger bumps on the open road, is very good. The secondary ride at lower speed, again, is good. I would like to sort of like drive it on the bigger wheels before I turn around and say it's best in class, because I just genuinely don't know. There could be an element of it that's just a little bit, you know, some of the ripples you can just feel as you slow down, as you go into some of the towns where they've maybe got a little bit of a transition from one surface to another, where you can just feel a little bit more. So there's maybe a little bit of jitteriness in its secondary ride. But other than that, it's not enough to complain about at all. You can alter the steering feel of the car as well. So if I go into the settings menu here, if I go into settings and into the driving mode here, I can go into there's various obviously different things that you can go into. So there's driving modes, there's standard and off-road. I don't know why it's got off-road. The one pedal drive you can activate from in here as well, where you've got off, auto and on, and the steering feel. Now at the moment I've got it in firm, and I have to admit it's got a really nice weight to it, but if I put it into soft, it now becomes a little bit lighter, becomes a bit more manoeuvrable. Doesn't make the car feel less precise, but it's just got a slightly lighter steering to it, and it's a bit more, it's not fingertip light, but just as you're pulling the wheel off from the dead ahead, it's just easier to manoeuvre like that. So again, for your everyday stuff like parking it in Tesco's or up at the railway station car park or outside the school gates, you've got that as well. So there's an element of the car you can change to suit you, depending obviously on what you want as a driver. But the way it's set up in standard mode, what a lovely car. And I can't think of a better word to describe it than just lovely. And I genuinely mean that. There's a calmness to it. It actually makes you feel more calm, more relaxed as you drive, because you just don't want to hurry it. If you do, it will respond, you know, it will drive nicely. Don't get me wrong, as I say, there's performance there, there's good steering feel. The brakes themselves, away from the one pedal driving, it's got a really nice feel through the pedal. That's not what this car's about. The other interesting thing about it, going back to the whole software thing, is this is a car that learns you, which is a little bit worrying in some respects, but I understand what they're saying with it. So for instance, the lane keep assist. If you're, let's say, quite erratic how you drive, you know, you're constantly fidgeting at the wheel, and the car thinks, well, hang on a second, you're always wavering around even in your own lane, it will narrow the parameters of the lane keep assist, so you don't really go near that white line in the centre. That's phenomenal. The other thing that's really clever about this car is the safety systems on it. Now Volvo, as I say, are pathological about safety, always have been. And that was the thing that I criticised the EX30 for a little bit, because it didn't have that driver's display. That's sorted here, I don't mind that so much. And that is so quick. It, as I say, genuinely, once you start using it, you really get used to it. Plus there's voice activation. You can just, through Google, you can ask it to set your radio station or your temperature. You don't need to go into it too much. The other thing is, once you set the car up to your profile, it immediately is all there for you. This is a car that I would say suits a one person driving or a couple of people, and you'll use it along with the app. So the software, again, the tech, is quite important to the car. But going back to the safety thing, here's an interesting statistic for you. Volvo have analysed 50,000 car crashes. That's not voyeuristic. What they're trying to do is understand how a car and how a driver behaves in various different accident scenarios. So, for instance, you know, okay, I'm coming out of a junction here. Imagine there was a car coming the other way, maybe overtaking. What would I react to in that sense? Would I give a sharper steering input? Would I slam the brakes on? What would it do? And this is what Volvo are then doing. All these sensors, all this information that it's soaking up about this is then being fed back into the development of its new cars. Right, do we need to sort out the brake force distribution a bit better? Do we need to put more cameras monitoring the driver? Do we need to do this? And as much as we sort of bemoan cars taking over in some respects, that's cars taking over for a good purpose. Now, I like a sporty car as much as the next person. I enjoy a sporty handling BMW, or I enjoy a fast Mercedes AMG and stuff like that. But I've also got kids, and I want my kids to be safe in a car. That's the type of thing that I look for in a car, and that's one of the reasons why this Volvo would be very high up my shopping list if I was in the marketplace for a car like this. Forget the comfort, forget all the rest of it. It's stuff like that. It's that type of technology, putting it to good use rather than it being a nanny state, actually saying this is why we do it, this is what we're helping moving forward, the development of our cars. Volvo have already stated they want to get to a point where no one dies in a Volvo. And this is one of the cars that's really benefiting from that type of philosophy. Allied that to the fact that this drives as well as it does, is as quiet and calm and as efficient and just so nice to drive. It's just really pleasant to be behind the wheel of a brand new electric car that does things a little bit differently, that shows that there is a different way. Not everything needs to be flashy tech for the sake of it, or 0 to 60 in 3 points whatever seconds or anything like that. Sometimes we just want a car to be comfortable, relaxing, make us feel better about the journey rather than hurriedly getting us to a destination. And if anything happens in that destination, you know you've got the confidence that the Volvo's going to look after you. That's the type of thing that would make me choose this over a BMW, over an Audi, or over a Mercedes. Now, the ES90 might not be the fastest Volvo, it might not be the sharpest handling Volvo, but you know what? That doesn't matter to me, because as far as I'm concerned, this is the best Volvo I've driven, by quite some margin. So how much does all this cost? Well, if you go for the Plus model, which this one is, then it only comes in the single motor extended range variant, and that comes in at just over £67,500. So that's where your price starts at. However, if you move to the Ultra model, you do get a choice of 3 different derivatives within that trim level. You can either have the single motor extended range like I've got here at £77,260, or you can have the twin motor variant for £81,500. But then there's a further option of the twin motor performance in the ultra trim level, and that comes in at just over £86,000. So it's not cheap, but then again, if you think about what the Volvo offers you over some of its key rivals in terms of its charging capability and potential range, not to mention the premium feel of the car and the design capabilities, plus that software we were talking about earlier, then I'm not going to say it's value for money, but you do get a lot for your money. Now, we've already mentioned the ubiquitous main rivals that you're going to immediately think of in this large electric executive saloon sort of marketplace, and that's of course BMW, Mercedes-Benz and Audi, with the i5, the EQE and of course the A6 e-tron. But there's also another couple that maybe don't spring to mind quite immediately, and one of them is Genesis. And when we think about the attributes that the Volvo have talked about, you know, fast charging capability, serenity, luxury, that's things that Genesis also talk about with the electrified G80, and that's a really good car. Genesis aren't necessarily making massive inroads as a brand into the UK especially. I know they are maybe in some other markets, but it's a car that if you're in this marketplace and you place, as I say, luxury and sort of like, you know, sort of like calmness above sportiness and sort of like handling, that's well worth a look. And another brand that's very, very keen to point out those things as well is Lexus, and they're going to enter the marketplace later in 2026 with the new ES model. So it's not just the big German 3 that we need to think about when we think of rivals for the Volvo. Other players are entering the marketplace as well, and they certainly deserve your attention as well. So the Volvo ES90, what are we to think of it? Well, it's one of these cars that quietly but confidently changes the conversation. It tries to be better than its rivals by not offering the same, but by doing something ever so slightly different. It offers calm over chaos, it offers intelligence over sportiness, and that's a big thing for me, and I think a lot of people are really going to appreciate something like that. It has all the attributes that we've been used to with Volvo and stuff that we've known from the brand for all these years: safety, good design, premium feeling materials, and then advances it on even more so. This is a car that's going to be quietly confident, and those people that are interested in being that type of driver are really going to appreciate exactly what Volvo have given us with the ES90. This isn't just another electric car. This is a different answer to the same question that a lot of people have been asking, and for some that might be the answer that they're looking for. And I think what Volvo have given us is not just another electric car, but something that really stands out for all the right reasons. Thank you for watching another new car review here on House of Cars. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the House of Cars channel, and then when you've done that, make sure you've turned on your notifications so you receive word when the next one is uploaded and gone live. If you've enjoyed this review of the Volvo ES90, give it a little thumbs up for me, and of course, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. The Volvo ES90 or the Mercedes-Benz EQE? A Volvo ES90 or a BMW i5? What would you prefer? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Now, if you want to follow me on social media, you can do that over on Instagram. Very simple. It's at House of Cars 1973. And remember, whether or not it is a large car or a small car, a new car or an old car, a slow car or a fast car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thank you once again for watching. Thank you very much for your continued support, and I'll see you again soon.